Well, hello everyone, how are you doing this fine day? Hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge, in particular, a Hellboy survival challenge. Now, I'm gonna do things a little bit differently than I usually do in my survival challenge when it comes to Hellboy. Normally what I do is I take a bunch of characters and I throw them into the Hellboy universe, be like, can you guys survive the Hellboy universe against all the crazy monsters and threats that might be there? That is not the case this time around. We're gonna keep it super simple and sweet. We're just gonna take just Hellboy himself, just the one dude, and we're gonna see if he can hunt down these four super evil, super fucked up asshole demons. Because honestly, when you talk about the greatest demon hunters and monster hunters of all time and all of fiction, people always talk about characters like Dante and Spawn and Ghost Rider. No one ever talks about Hellboy, despite the fact that he's one of the best ones. Not just in terms of just straight up skill, but also writing. It's such a good comic. More people should read the comic. Risk the gay. And that's it. That's what this video is about. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. But I've wasted up your time. Let's get started. To explain a little bit about Hellboy for people who aren't aware. Hellboy is a half demon, half human, where one half of his bloodline comes from the demon Lord Azazel, and the other half comes from, King Arthur. No, seriously. If I can more or less summarize the story of Hellboy, and the main point of the story is essentially that due to Hellboy's dual bloodline, prophecies were made that destined him for two very different paths. On his demonic side, he's destined to become the beast of the apocalypse that will bring about the end of the world, and on his human side, he was destined to become the king of Britain and lead his people to prosperity against any form of evil. The entire story is about Hellboy completely rejecting these paths, and it's essentially a story of a man who's fighting back against destiny and not allowing his path to be dictated by forces outside of his control. As the story goes on, it seems more and more like he won't be able to avoid one of these two things happening, and he constantly tries to make his own decisions and do things his own way to essentially force a third path that shouldn't be possible. It is a supremely good story with amazing art and one of the best comic book characters in comics. If you've never read it before, I suggest highly that you do. It's a story that I recommend to basically all comic book readers, and if you're a comic book reader that's only really read Marvel and DC comics, you should absolutely read this so you can introduce quality into your life. Since, you know, you've clearly never seen it before. I always laugh when I make videos like this and I talk about Marvel or DC characters, and then I get a bunch of comments of people accusing me of being either a Marvel or DC shill, depending on who I side with winning in whatever particular engagement, when the truth is I don't believe either of them are worth the paper they're written on. To think that we lost out on the value that paper could have had by me wiping my ass with it and flushing it down the toilet. Now don't get me wrong, I don't feel hatred for Marvel and DC. I feel probably about the same way I feel about the flies that circle the dog shit before I have to pick it up at the backyard. You know, it's not hate. They're just kind of irritating, gross, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. So Hellboy in the Mignola universe is the world's greatest paranormal investigator. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of all paranormal creatures and activity and all sorts of things, from ghosts, to demons, to folklore, legends, myths, whatever. If he had to go hunt the fucking El Chupacabra, he knows exactly what he has to do to hunt it down and to take it out. He is unbelievably intelligent as well as very wise, usually being able to guide the people around him, giving them advice that helps and sort of being a big brother figure to a lot of the supporting cast of the story. This is mainly because Hellboy is very, very fucking old. Due to the fact that he ages very, very slowly, he looks like he's in maybe his mid to late 20s, despite the fact that he's over 80 years old. So there's this really cool characterization he has where he kind of talks and acts like an old man. Not like he's out of touch or anything, he just has a very old soul. He just doesn't have a very spry, youngin' personality that you would expect from a young 20-something, 30-something-year-old demon hunter. He's more so seen it all, has all this experience, and he's just kind of done with all this shit at this point. It just sort of is what it is. And it gives his character a really unique spin from what you would normally see in these types of stories. In terms of physical ability, he is not in any way human. He is physically stronger, physically faster. He can't die, that's a big one. He has an insane regen factor, a ton of resistances to all sorts of things, from poisons to fire, curses, dark magic, death itself. He can travel freely between Earth, Heaven, and Hell whenever he wants. This is mostly due to his greatest weapon, the right arm of Doom, which basically is the arm of, like, not an angel exactly, but it's like one of the creators of the universe had this arm and then they died, but their arm was left over. And then when Hellboy was born, his father cut his arm off and replaced it with the right arm of Doom. This gives him all sorts of crazy different powers. Not only does his arm act as essentially a key or gateway to other worlds, which is why he's destined to bring about the apocalypse, but Also, it allows him to interact and deal with things in ways that other people can't. For instance, characters who are normally immune to anything on the physical plane are not immune to Hellboy. He is capable of fucking with them. He could fight ghosts and spirits and other characters that should normally just be phased through. He can kill beings that are normally unkillable or normally have very specific rules that you need to follow in order to kill them. Like, for example, if you're fighting a vampire and you can only kill a vampire by staking it through the heart, Hellboy can just beat it to death. He doesn't actually have to stake it through the heart. The arm allows him to just break the rules of how to kill that thing. It goes through all manner of resistances and survival abilities and just allows him to kill things anyway. At one point in the series, he's fighting against a character known as Rasputin, and Rasputin's whole thing is that he can't die because his soul was taken out of his body and split into a bunch of different locations. The only way to kill Rasputin is to go to all those locations to destroy his soul. After Rasputin had a fight with Hellboy and Hellboy destroyed his body, Rasputin came back, but he came back significantly weakened and pieces of his soul were destroyed when he was killed, which should not have been possible. This was only possible due to the right arm of doom that Hellboy had. This made Rasputin come to the decision that he should not fight Hellboy again, because Hellboy is actually capable of killing him regardless of all of the defenses and safeguards that he put around his own life. On top of all this, he has a large assortment of relics and items and different sort of magical things that he got from all sorts of other mythologies and legends and theologies and all this different kind of stuff. And this allows him to do all kinds of different crazy things. He has an item that allows him to communicate with the dead or people who have already passed on. He has items that allow him to banish beings to hell, items that make him immune to certain forms of damage. He even has the legendary Arthurian blade Excalibur, which can be used to raise and lead an army of the undead. Although for this challenge, I won't be giving that to him because it was a temporary power-up. He had the sword for a very short amount of time before giving it away, so I think it would be unfair to include that amongst his equipment. Because he himself is also a holy man, he has the ability to bless items, and these items are a little more powerful than your usual crucifix or holy water. Essentially, anything that he attacks with these blessed items immediately kill the thing he's attacking, even if that thing is not weak to holy items normally. At one point, he has a blessed shovel and then hits a guy who is not a demon in the face with the shovel, and he turns to fucking dust because he's evil. Essentially, if you take Hellboy and you put him up against any fictional, evil, supernatural, paranormal being, Hellboy generally has what he needs to in order to overcome and kill it. It's just sort of the way his character is designed. So if we take him and we make his mission to hunt down these 4 demons, how's it gonna go? I don't know. Let's fucking find out. First up on the chopping block, we have Malebolgia from the Spawn universe, specifically the comics, not the movie. That would be stupid. So something you might not know about me if you're new to this channel is that I am not particularly big into any community at all, ever, about anything. I don't go to Reddits or online forums or any of that kind of stuff to really discuss anything about any series that I like. I just watch it or read it or whatever, not in a gay way, and then come to my own conclusions about certain things. And because of this, the conclusions that I come to are often very different than what the community has all come together to just unanimously believe. And I am oftentimes surprised by what that community belief is. The Spawn universe is one of the most egregious examples of things that are just so baffling to me. I do not understand why the community believes the things they believe about the Spawn universe. It is absolutely insane to me that everyone thinks that Spawn versus Ghost Rider is actually a good fight. That Spawn is this god-level being. I don't get it. In fact, I think the Spawn community is in so much agreement of how strong Spawn is that I can't just make this section of the video and just talk about Spawn the way I know him without everybody saying, well, hold up, bitch. You are not using the community-approved opinions of this particular universe. So, a very large section of this video is gonna have to be about me defending myself, I guess. Which also means that I get to do something that I haven't done a very long time on this channel. I get to shit on Versus Battle Wiki. I understand that there might be some people out there who say that Versus Battle Wiki is not the opinions of the entirety of the Spawn community. That's true, but I mean, to be honest with you, I've seen some people make just as egregious arguments as this, and it's not like Versus Battle Wiki isn't made of a community of people. It's not made by one person. A bunch of people had to come together to agree to this bullshit, so I think it's perfectly fair to just say, you know, just use this. I'm using it as a straw man, okay? I get that. It's a straw man, but it's not really a straw man since there are people who have made these arguments. A sizable number. So let's start from the beginning, shall we? How strong does Versus Battle Wiki say that base Spawn is? Fucking Galaxy? Why? Where did they get Galaxy from? When has he ever done anything with... What? So doing a little bit of digging, I realized that the reason why they have him in Galaxy is because they're comparing him to Angela. So let me give you a little history of Angela. Angela was a character that was created for the Spawn comics by Todd McFarlane. They were sued, and Marvel Comics took the rights to Angela. Todd McFarlane can't use them anymore. When Marvel decided to reuse Angela, they reintroduced her, gave her a complete reboot, totally new origin story, powers. I even think her weapon has a different origin now. Everything about her is different other than her appearance and her name. She is essentially a whole new character. The reason why they have Spawn at Galaxy is because Spawn fought against Angela, and Angela, after Image Comics lost the right to her, went over into Marvel and then started fighting characters like Thor and Hela and Jane Foster. What the fuck versus battle? Look, okay, sometimes I can kind of get that you don't necessarily understand like how Marvel Comics work, right? You take a character who fights another character, and then you compare that character to a fight that they fought someone else in a totally different storyline where all of the power levels were completely different, and then you drag those feats into the current storyline where he's fighting this person. You might not necessarily know about the different continuities. Like, I kind of get it, but I don't really think I can defend this Angela thing at all. This isn't even a different continuity version of the same character. It's a completely different company, a completely different IP with characters that Spawn and Angela from Image Comics have never come into contact with. Angela in Image Comics doesn't have anything even close to the version of Angela in Marvel Comics. Spawn hasn't had a crossover with Marvel in years because Todd McFarlane doesn't get along with them because they stole the character of Angela from him. He was sued by the company. It makes no sense to try and compare Spawn to a version of Angela owned by a different company, written by different writers, totally different origin and power system and everything, and it interacted with Spawn before the Marvel version even existed. This is so stupid. Spawn doesn't have any Galaxy feats in base. Neither does Angela. Not in Image Comics they don't. I would even argue they don't have any Galaxy feats in Marvel, but that's a totally different conversation. In reality, base Spawn without any kind of power-ups is pretty like he's not like these fucking people are gonna compare him to a totally different continuity version of Angela who he's never actually met, but you're gonna completely ignore the fact that he got into a hand-to-hand fight with Batman and they stalemated, despite his superior strength and physical abilities. Yeah, it's specifically stated Spawn cannot defeat Batman in a physical altercation. It can't happen, even with his superhuman abilities. How are you putting this dude at Galaxy? Now, personally, I don't think you should use any of these, not the Batman thing either, because that's what happens in crossovers. They change the power levels of all the characters so that everyone sort of meets the same criteria and can fight against each other. That's just kind of the nature of crossovers, which is why Marvel's a piece of shit, because their entire library of comics are just written like crossover comics, where everybody can be any power level or have any abilities that they need to in order for that individual story to make sense. Everything just kind of becomes a clusterfuck. But what it seems like based on this first claim is that they've essentially taken Spawn, a series that is more or less written consistently, and they've sort of thrown it in with the fucking clusterfuck that is Marvel because Angela exists in Marvel, even though it's a totally different version of Angela. Keep Spawn out of Marvel. His power levels are far more consistent than Marvel can ever dream to be, so I don't even know why you would want to pull him on over there. In reality, base Spawn has a lot more realistic shit going on. He fights against criminals with guns and like paranormal events that are relatively low tier. Like, there's nothing too insane here, at least not at base. It gets a little more ridiculous later on, and we'll get, oh fucking hell. This is the first claim. There's like 5 more. I need to speed this shit up. Versus Battle Week, it continues on to say that Spawn is universal by scaling him to Malebolgia. He's multiversal by scaling him to God and Satan. And he's like ridiculous, some made up bullshit by scaling him to Mother of Existence. Whatever they call it. Complex, multiversal, whatever. Doesn't matter. All 3 of these are bullshit. Let me explain why. They have Malebolgia Universal Plus because he controls all of the 8th Circle of Hell. He has complete dominion over it. And while he's in there, his power is nearly limitless. And the 8th Circle of Hell is infinite in size. You're gonna hear me say this a lot, but none of this is true. There is no statement, not a single one across all of comics, that says that the 8th Circle of Hell is infinite, or even that Hell as a whole is infinite. The only thing we get is a single line from the narrator saying that Malebolgia's realm is an infinity away. Something being an infinity away does not make it infinite in size. I don't even know how you made that leap. Even if you wanted to take this literally, which it clearly isn't, the 8th Circle of Hell isn't a full universe. It's one circle of a hell that's 12 circles. Even if Hell was a universe and Malebolgia was in charge of the 8th Circle, he wouldn't be in charge of a full universe, he'd be in charge of a section of it. But the thing is, Hell is never once stated to be a universe in all of Spawn comics. It's stated made it to be a dimension because that's what it is. It's a pocket dimension that lies within the greater universe that is the Spawn universe. It's not its own separate universe. It's even stated in the comics that hell in the Spawn universe isn't an actual physical place. It's stated to not be a place, but a state of mind, a mental prison for people who die where souls can go and get tortured. It's not physical, it's mental. That's literally the way it's described in the comics. Not only that, but this whole Malebolgia has full control over the 8th Circle of Hell and can do whatever while he's in it. Spawn fights against Malebolgia in hell. Do you know how much control he shows over hell during that fight? Fucking zero. He just like tries to punch him and throws fire and shit. He doesn't like control the whole universe to attack Spawn. That never happened. So where are you guys getting all this information? This tier level takes statements that are meant to be metaphorical, takes them literally, and then changes them. Like even when they try to take them too literally, they actually alter it. Like the whole infinity thing, right? It's an infinity away, not infinite in size. It doesn't say it's infinite in size, but you're gonna say it's infinite in size. There's another statement where Spawn yells, and it says that his war cry shook the timbers of creation. And on Versus Battle Wiki, they take that as evidence that his war cry shook all of the universe and all of creation. No, it shook the timbers of creation. That's different. Timbers are support beams for houses. So even if you wanted to take this super literally, he shook the support beams of the universe, not the universe itself, not all of creation. But again, this is metaphorical. If you actually read the comics, you know that Todd McFarlane likes to use flowery language like this because he is trying to indicate to the reader the intensity of this particular yell. The yell was so mighty that it shook the timbers of creation and reverberated across worlds. You see this in writing all the time. It's not meant to be taken literal. I mean, if he literally yelled so loud that he shook all of creation, you know everybody would be dead, right? Like any normal person would be fucking immediately dead. Planets would no longer exist. Stars would explode. I just don't see where you're coming from other than to just try and jury-rig the numbers to make this shit as strong as humanly possible. In reality, what Malebolgia is a big old demon dude who runs a particular section of a mental realm where souls go to be tortured. He's big, he's strong, he's durable, he could shoot fire at people, he fucks with memories, he's shown being able to fuck with memories, but as far as destroying universes and galaxies, nothing like that is ever shown at Malebolgia's level. Nothing even close. I can actually go on to talk about God, Satan, and the Mother of Existence and how they're nowhere near as strong as what people like to claim they are, but I'll hold that for a future video. Just know that as far as Malebolgia goes, the fuck y'all talking about? Like, no. Now, some people might want to try to argue that after Spawn defeated Malebolgia, he then became a king of the 8th Circle of Hell, and when he did become the king, he got a whole slew of new powers and just overall reached a level of power that he had never had before. So shouldn't Malebolgia kind of sort of scale to that version since they were both kings of hell and he got that power up from being the king of hell? No. Spawn defeated Malebolgia before he was the king of hell when Malebolgia was the king of the 8th Circle of Hell. So he was already starting off at a stronger place. I mean, we see all the shit that Malebolgia can do. It's not a fraction of the shit that Spawn can do. Before Spawn defeated Malebolgia, it was stated that he is the strongest being that hell has ever created. He was already superior to Malebolgia, so it doesn't matter how strong he becomes after he becomes king of hell. That's not in any way comparable to anything that Malebolgia can do, because he killed Malebolgia in a weaker state before he had all those powers. Malebolgia at no point shows that he can use any of those powers. I don't think it's assumption to say that he can't. So if Hellboy got in his head one day that he's like, okay, this Malebolgia guy over in hell is causing a bunch of problems and causing suffering across billions of worlds, which is true, that is a statement that's in the comics, and he decided, I need to go stop this dude, will he be able to? Yes, immediately. He will immediately be able to stop. Are you kidding me? No. He would open up a portal, which he could do, and he would just travel directly in front of Malebolgia, and he would kick the living shit out of him. He wouldn't really even need any of his crazy blessed weapons that turn people into dust or anything, because Spawn killed Malebolgia by cutting off his head with a sword. Was it this awesome, epic, demon god-slaying sword that Spawn had to go on this great journey to? No, just a fucking sword. Just made of metal. Just a regular, basic bitch sword. Cut off Malebolgia's head. He was fucking dead. Now, after Malebolgia lost his head, he did eventually come back. This is another thing that makes Spawn and the Spawn universe not all that strong. They literally don't have the ability to destroy souls in this universe. Maybe you can argue characters like Mother of Existence can, but base Spawn, Angela, Malebolgia, none of these characters are capable of destroying souls. They can do all kinds of other crazy shit with souls. They could steal them. Spawn traps a bunch of souls of people he kills in his cape. At one point, Malebolgia talks about taking someone's soul, bringing it down to hell, and ripping it apart into pieces to torture it, but never actually actually destroy a soul, essentially eliminating someone from existence. Nobody can do that. So when Spawn kills someone like Billy Kincaid, who's just like a basic serial killer, Billy Kincaid can come back over and over and over again because Spawn literally can't destroy his soul. This is the same thing for Malebolgia. This is why the enemies keep returning. As we've seen Hellboy do with someone like Rasputin, when he kills someone, he actually can destroy their soul, meaning that he can kill Malebolgia in a way that is far more permanent than what Spawn can do. And there's really nothing Malebolgia can do that Spawn hasn't dealt with before. Mind control and memory manipulation, he's dealt with that kind of stuff. Illusions, he's dealt with that kind of stuff. Hellfire doesn't affect him in any way, so none of that's gonna work. Soul manipulation is not gonna work. Banishing him to some other section of hell is not gonna work because he could freely travel in and out. He literally has resistance to everything. Malebolgia is gonna have to beat him in a fucking fist fight. And in a fist fight, Hellboy is significantly more skilled, far more powerful, and again, he has abilities that can one-shot Malebolgia and literally turn him to dust. If Hellboy strikes Malebolgia with the right arm of doom, it will explode Malebolgia's head and his soul will cease to exist. Problem fucking solved. This is very one-sided. Hellboy is fucking destroying here. People exaggerate the power levels of the Spawn universe. If you're enjoying the video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, you join the membership, you get access to exclusive videos that no one else gets access to. It's like 20 different videos and they constantly grow and there's more of them every day and it's awesome. You're gonna love it. It's great. And if you're interested in joining the Discord, go on down below in the pinned comment. You will see a link to the Discord. You can go there and we can party, baby. Let's get back to the video. Next up, we have Ahzrak from Doom: The Dark Ages. And honestly, this is a very, very similar situation to what we just dealt with Malebolgia, because they basically have all the same powers. You know, mind control, different forms of mental manipulation, possession, hellfire manipulation. Ahzrak does have a few more powers like demonic magic, which is capable of destroying souls, as well as being able to instantly resurrect his underlings after they're killed. He's also stated directly to be able to steal the divinity from the old one, who was a god from the cosmic realm. And after Ahzrak came into contact with him, he just straight up like, no, you're not anymore, and took that shit, which is interesting for sure, but really none of that is the reason why he's over Malebolgia. The main reason he's over Malebolgia is because he's smarter. Malebolgia basically does everything he possibly can throughout the Spawn comic to get himself killed. He mocks Spawn, he consistently shows up in front of him to taunt him and fuck with him, he screws him over in their deal, he just randomly manipulates Spawn's memories just to piss him off. He actively makes sure that he lives rent-free inside of Spawn's head at all times. When Spawn finally does go to kill Malebolgia just straight up decides to fight him in a fucking fist fight and gets absolutely brutalized. He doesn't even attempt to utilize his army against Spawn to fight him. He's just not particularly smart because he believes that he's this all-powerful godlike being and he just isn't. He had no idea that a Hellspawn would be able to actually overcome him. When you go over to someone like Ahzrak, you see a completely different mindset when it comes to trying to kill someone like the Slayer. Ahzrak knows from the first 5 minutes of the game that he cannot kill the Slayer. So he doesn't even try. The whole game is the Slayer trying to catch up to Ahzrak to kill him as Ahzrak continuously puts obstacles in his way because Ahzrak's not going to fight the Slayer until he knows he can win. He wants the power of the Wraiths and the power of the Cosmic Realm. Once he gets that, then he will be able to take on the Slayer. That's the whole game, is him just trying to get this thing, which, by the way, he succeeds in doing. He lays traps for Doomguy. He consistently has Doomguy having to fight other people. He plans shit out. He tries to manipulate the makers to turn on Doomguy as well to help him in his plans. He's a smart dude, which is why I don't think Hellboy is going to be able to do the exact same thing he did with Malebolgia, where he just appears in front of him and fucks him up. I think Ahzrak is going to take the proper steps that he needs to in order to avoid a conflict with Hellboy until he believes he's ready. Now, will he ever actually be ready? No, never. Not even with the Wraith powers. Even after we see Ahzrak acquiring the Wraith powers, his powers are just the same as what his powers were before, just a much higher potency. He's still being shown using demonic magic, resurrecting people, using hellfire. He's faster, he's stronger, he's capable of competing with the Slayer in a physical confrontation, which he cannot do without that power. But none of this is stuff that Hellboy hasn't faced before. None of the demonic magic or hellfire is going to work on him. The mind control is not going to work on him. I don't think the corruption is going to work on him. For one, this is a much weaker version version of corruption in Doom the Dark Ages than what we see in Eternal, and Hellboy has spent basically his entire life being tempted by hell in order to fulfill a prophecy and cause the apocalypse, which he never at any point in the story even comes close to humoring the possibility of doing, even though hell offers him a lot of great stuff and puts up a lot of pretty good arguments why he should. He is shown to be highly resistant to soul, body, and mind manipulation. He can't be killed. Even if Ahzrak does somehow slice him into pieces, rip his head off and all this stuff, he'll just come right back. His resurrection and healing factor can completely outdo it. I just don't see any real ways that Ahzrak can kill him here. Perhaps maybe you can argue that Ahzrak can strip him of his demonic powers and the powers that the right arm of Doom have, because he was able to strip the divinity from the old one, but we don't see how Ahzrak does that. Can he just walk up to Hellboy and like rip his power out of his body with his bare hands? Does he put him through like a machine and there's like a process? We don't know. We don't see it. But considering that Ahzrak never even makes an attempt to take the divinity out of Doom Guy, I'm not going to make the assumption that he can just do that with his bare hands until we see exactly how he did that, which, let's be honest, knowing Doom lore, we're never going to fucking see it. And Ahzrak really doesn't have a defense for a lot of the shit that Doom Guy can do. Like I said, Doom Guy can touch him, and as long as Ahzrak is evil, he will turn to fucking dust. As long as he touches him with some sort of blessed object, which he can create. Ahzrak is for sure evil and will be turned to dust. He can't come back from that. There's a lot of shit Hellboy can do to him that he can't come back from in any considerable way. And it really doesn't matter how many of Hell's forces they throw at Hellboy. Hellboy is just way too powerful for any of the demons that appear in this game. When Hellboy became the Prince of Hell, he was able to make himself a giant. The giant that he made himself was so big that a massive mountain range only went up to like his upper thigh. At one point, he assaulted this massive demonic fortress that was on the top of a mountain, and that only went up to like his waist. It's been theorized by readers of the comic that Hellboy in this form is miles tall, like over a mile, like a mile and a half, 1.7 miles, something like that. Not like miles, but more than a mile. A mile is 5,280 feet. A Titan in Doom the Dark Ages is stated to be 30 stories tall. That's roughly 330 to 360 feet, depending on how the foundation is made and how tall the ceilings are. There's a couple different factors there, but it should be around 330 to 360. This means that Hellboy in his Prince of Hell form is almost 20 times the height of a Titan in Doom. At that point, it doesn't even really matter how strong the Titans are or how much hell magic they're using. They're literally going to be shooting shit at his ankles. Like, he is just way too big and way too powerful for them. Even with the Atlans using Wraith energy that completely negate durability, his healing factor can completely get around that. So how exactly is Ahzrak going to even begin to try and fight this dude? Now, do I think that he's going to be that height when he fights Ahzrak? No, he'll probably be the same height as Ahzrak, but he has that level of power inside of his body. Whenever he wants to, he can utilize it, and there's no real evidence that Ahzrak has that much power. He has the power of a Wraith, and people have argued that Wraith has universal power, but even if that were true, which we don't know for sure, there's really no evidence that Ahzrak can use the full degree of that power. He doesn't do anything even close to universal. We see Thor has the power of the Wraith, and she's not using universal levels of power, so why are we assuming that Ahzrak can use its full extent? He can definitely use more of it than Thera, but we don't know how much. So I think that's a pretty big stretch. So if Ahzrak can't kill Doom Guy, he can't steal or destroy his soul, he can't mind manipulate him, he can't corrupt him, he can't banish him to hell, and he can't steal any of his powers from him, he can't fucking win. At the end of the day, all Doom Guy has to do is crush his head, cut his head off, rip his body in half, turn him into dust with one of his blessed weapons. Any of these will work. Ahzrak doesn't really have a way of returning after death the same way Doom Guy or Hellboy does. So yeah, Hellboy wins this. Again, only reason Ahzrak is above Malebolgia is because he's smarter and has a couple more tools in his arsenal. Next up on the list, we have the Gun Devil from Chainsaw Man. And I'm pretty sure most people's jaws are going to drop because, I mean, he should be the weakest, right? Like, he should be first on the list. I feel like a lot of people are thinking he should be first on the list. He's not here because I think he's stronger than Ahzrak and Malebolgia, although I think there can be a pretty good argument that he actually is stronger than Malebolgia, but that doesn't matter. That's not why he's here. The reason why he's here is because there's no real evidence that Hellboy can permanently kill him. In Chainsaw Man, the way devils work is that each devil is a living concept of a particular fear that exists. So the Gun Devil is the living embodiment of the fear of guns. The only reason why he exists is because people are afraid of guns. If no one was afraid of guns, no Gun Devil. The more that fear is, the stronger the Gun Devil gets. The weaker that fear is, the weaker the Gun Devil gets. It has nothing to do with the single person he's fighting. If he fights against Hellboy and Hellboy has no fear of guns, that's not going to make the Gun Devil weaker. It's an amalgamation of all fear that exists across all of the universe, not only the human world, world, but also the demon world. And since there's a large group of people that freak out when guns come around, you can the Gun Devil's pretty powerful. At one point in the series, way before the start of the series, when the Gun Devil was arguably at his weakest, other than him becoming a fiend later on, he was able to, within 5 minutes, go to a bunch of different cities across the planet and kill 1.2 million people by just unloading shots just across the whole planet. 5 minutes. He's incredibly fast, he's incredibly destructive, and he doesn't really care who he kills. Now, there's nothing in his arsenal of powers that says that he'll be able to do anything against Hellboy himself, because all he does is really, really overpowered fucking gunshots. Like, he could blow whole city blocks away like it's no issue, but none of that's going to be able to kill Hellboy. The problem is, Hellboy can't kill him. As long as the fear of guns exists, the Gun Devil will exist in some form. You can kill the Gun Devil, and the Gun Devil will go to hell and be reincarnated, but he still exists, and he'll still be able to come back. There's no evidence that devils in this universe even have a soul, and if they do have a soul, destroying it wouldn't do anything because the fear of guns would just bring the Gun Devil back, even if it brings him back with a new soul. So where Hellboy can actually permanently put out Ahzrak and Malebolgia, he can't for the Gun Devil. He can kill the Gun Devil, and then he can wait, and then the Gun Devil come back and kill him again, and then he could just keep doing that over and over and over again, really no way around it. Even if he touched him with the blessed weapon and turned him into dust, the Gun Devil will just wake up in hell. You go to hell, you kill him in hell, he'll wake up on Earth, and then just keep doing that. Like, there's really nothing you can do to deal with him unless Hellboy can destroy concepts themselves, of which he might, but we don't have any evidence that he can. So the right arm of doom that Hellboy has is an arm that was taken from one of the beings that created the universe and created the concepts. So it is arguable that if he killed him with the right arm of doom, he would actually be able to destroy the concept of guns and kill the Gun Devil permanently. The problem is he's never actually shown killing a conceptual being in the Hellboy universe. The closest he comes is Baba Yaga, who is actually the conceptual existence of Russia itself. So basically, as long as Russia exists, so will Baba Yaga. In order to permanently kill Baba Yaga, you would have to completely destroy the country of Russia, and Hellboy's never done that. He's never successfully killed Baba Yaga. They've fought, he's damaged her, he's wounded her, but she always leaves, or she'll send some other person to go fight Hellboy. They have never fought to a point that there was a victor and Hellboy got to kill Baba Yaga. So we don't know what would happen if Hellboy actually killed her, because it's never happened. So this one for me is going to be a maybe. If he got into a fight with a Gun Devil, he will absolutely 100% win, but it's just going to prolong the inevitable until the Gun Devil returns. I mean, even in part 2 of Chainsaw Man, they have strongly implied the Gun Devil's going to come back. So it's just going to be like this continuous thing he'll always have to deal with, unless he can somehow erase him from conceptual existence, which is a maybe right now. So yeah, it's a maybe. Last up, but certainly not least, we have Blackheart from Marvel. Now, just to be clear, I know a lot of people are going to use the version of Blackheart that took over hell and became a god. We're not using that version because that's one storyline. He had it for a couple of issues and then he lost it. That is what I would consider a temporary power-up. People who like to talk about comic characters like to talk about temporary bullshit power-ups that aren't actually in the character's normal arsenal. The same thing with the whole Mother of Existence Spawn thing. He had it for like a couple issues and lost it. It's also the same reason why I took Excalibur from Hellboy. He had it for a little bit, he used it in a couple of fights, he gave it away immediately, he doesn't have it anymore. Malebolgia gets his Hell Lord powers because he was a Hell Lord throughout the course of the entire story. Hellboy gets his Prince of Hell powers because by the end of the story, that is his power. He never loses it. That's just who he is now. If they made a sequel to the story, he would still have those powers unless they wrote some kind of thing where he lost it somehow. So don't be coming at me talking to me about how Blackheart is a god and did all these crazy No, he's not. Okay, that was one storyline. One-time power-ups don't count here. Now, having said that, what can Blackheart do? Basically everything. His powers essentially boil down to dark magic. He can do basically anything that requires dark magic. He can fuck with your mind, your soul, possession. He's so evil that his presence causes sickness and plagues to appear. He at one point stole all of Daredevil's senses, so he like removed his hearing and his sense of smell, so he literally just couldn't see anything. He's capable of traveling freely between multiple dimensions. He can control hellfire, souls, all sorts of crazy things. Also summoning, you name it, he's got it. If Hellboy decided to chase down this motherfucker and hunt him, how would that go? And this is the one where I kind of have to throw my hands up in the air and be like, I don't know. I have no idea. Blackheart has so many powers, but Hellboy resists basically all of those powers. I couldn't see a single one that he doesn't. Even shit like taking away someone's senses, that's something that Rasputin can do. In Hellboy, Rasputin was capable of just saying that someone was blind and they became blinded, but cannot utilize that same magical power on Hellboy. His magic doesn't affect him at all. Hellboy seems to be immune to any form of dark magic. And overall, I just don't see a way that Blackheart can permanently put Hellboy down. Hellboy can't put Blackheart down either. Unlike the previous demons, we actually know for a 100% fact that Blackheart does not have a soul. Ergo, soul destruction is not something that could work on him. And Blackheart has also been killed before, and when he does, his body just reappears in hell. And again, he could freely pass between hell and earth, so you haven't like stopped his thing. Like, the whole thing about Blackheart is he's damn near impossible to get rid of, even in Marvel Comics that have a larger assortment of powers than Hellboy does. Like, this dude is basically unkillable, but so is Hellboy. Like, the only way that I could see Blackheart or Hellboy being killed is if someone can erase their concept from existence, which Blackheart can't do to Hellboy, and Hellboy could arguably do to Blackheart, but he's never actually done it, so I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that he can. Like, there's evidence in Hellboy that he could possibly do that, but there's no proof that he can. Does that make sense? Like, there's things pointing at the possibility, but you can't just say it would still be a theory. You know, like the theory of gravity. We're pretty sure this is how it works, but we can't call it a fact because there might be something that we're not thinking about that it could possibly be wrong, but we're pretty fucking sure we got it right with the whole gravity thing. That's kind of like how the Hellboy erasing concepts thing has worked. I'm pretty sure, but you know, maybe not, so I'm not gonna go like too far ahead of it. I also think it's pretty easy to argue that Blackheart would be the best fight for Hellboy as opposed to all these other ones. I think so far Hellboy has pretty unanimously been more powerful than the other characters. I mean, maybe not Ahzrak, because like Ahzrak was capable of subjugating titans, and that's only really possible if he is physically powerful enough to subjugate them, or if his mind control abilities are strong enough to overcome them. So we know that before he gets the Wraith energy, he should be superior to titans, otherwise they wouldn't serve him. And that's not me just adding that in, that's actually written in the lore, that how hell works is that the strongest rule over the weak by subjugating through force. And based on a lot of codexes within Doom the Dark Ages, we know that Ahzrak has gone out of his way to subjugate several other races of demons, which he would have had to do through force. So bare minimum, before he got the Wraith powers, he was stronger than Titan. However, he does get the Wraith powers, and we don't know how much his strength increases after he does, we just know it's considerable. So maybe you can argue that Ahzrak is actually stronger than Hellboy and Blackheart, possibly. Nah, I mean, it's hard to say. But the reason Hellboy won is because he has ways of killing Ahzrak. Ahzrak doesn't have ways of killing him. In this particular case, neither has ways of killing the other, and this fight just kind of seems like it's eternal and will never stop. Like, neither can trap the other, banish them in other worlds, put them in comas, you know, lock them in a weird illusion dimension. Like, none of that would work on either character. So I like this one. I think it's really cool. And I actually think a comic about this would be really cool, or, you know, bare minimum, maybe put it on a t-shirt, because that's some pretty badass designs. Hellboy and Blackheart going head to head. That's pretty cool. But yeah, overall, I'm gonna say it's a stalemate with a slight leaning towards Hellboy winning, because maybe he can erase his concept, or at least kill Blackheart, like turn him into dust or something, to the point that he sends him back to hell. And I guess you could take that as like a temporary win, you know, kind of like the same way with the Gun Devil. But that's all I got for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get access to exclusive videos that nobody else does. Isn't that so much fun? It's so much fun. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?